have any idea how many years SpongeBob has been around? Did you know that SpongeBob is practically an old man now? Who hasn't watched SpongeBob? Let them cast the first stone. Well, everyone has seen that little square and yellow guy at least once. Did you know, for example, there's even a 1950 version of the show in black and white and silent, just like in old movies? Just to give you an idea, the origin of SpongeBob was an educational comic book called The Intertidal Zone, made a long time ago. In it, SpongeBob was completely different. Trust me, you'll want to know all about it. 1984 to 1993. Do you realize that if we were to count SpongeBob's age since he was created, he would already be almost 40 years old? That's right, folks. The first appearance of the most beloved sea sponge of all time might have been even before you were born. It was in 1984 when a guy named Stephen Hillenburg, who taught marine biology to children, created a hand-drawn comic book himself. He did it to help his students understand how marine life worked and what the animals that inhabited the ocean floor were like. That's when the intertidal zone came into existence. You know when the high tide goes away and there are some animals left on the beach? Well, that's exactly what the comics depicted. And the animals that stayed on the beach are precisely some of the main characters of the future animated show. Starfish, crabs, and of course, sea sponges.
We see Bikini Bottom, teeming with life, home of one of my favorite creatures, SpongeBob SquarePants.
This was around 1984. The idea of making an animated show didn't exist yet, but the seed of the show was already forming in Stephen Hillenburg's mind. 1994 to 1999. Hillenburg's ideas remained in his comic book. As he enjoyed drawing, he decided to pursue a career as a cartoonist. He began officially working as an animation producer until one of his co-workers saw his comic book and really liked it. This friend encouraged him to use the characters he had already developed to create an animated show. And that's how SpongeBoy came to be. That's right, folks. SpongeBob's first name would be SpongeBoy, sort of like a superhero name. However, the name was soon changed to Bob because Nickelodeon's legal department discovered that there was a product with the same name on the market, and they could have copyright issues.
I'm gonna go in there, march straight to the manager, look him straight in the eye, lay it on the line, and I can't do this!
Another thing that changed quite a bit was Bob's appearance, and it changed a lot indeed. Before, he looked more like an actual sea sponge, a bit round, just like his pants. Steven decided to make Bob's shape easier to understand, like a kitchen sponge, completely square. And that's when the show's subtitle came in, SquarePants. Pretty cool, huh? He also used to wear stylish sunglasses, very beach-like. But that was no longer part of the ensemble. Bob then gained his typical outfit with the short brown pants, white shirt, and red tie. And of course, his black shoes and long socks. And that's how SpongeBob was ready to come into the world, along with all his friends from Bikini Bottom, 1999 to 2023. And so, on May 1st, 1999, the first episode of what would become a series of episodes was released, and for the past 24 years, they have been produced by Nickelodeon. Since then, there have been 13 seasons, and I'm sure Nickelodeon has no plans to end this show anytime soon. In fact, the 14th season is already in production. After all, SpongeBob SquarePants is by far the most profitable cartoon on the channel.
Yes, excellent!
Over 400 episodes have been produced and broadcasted in hundreds of different countries, dubbed in various languages. Funny enough, Stephen Hillenburg had plans to end the series for real in 2004 with the SpongeBob SquarePants movie. But since Nickelodeon wanted to continue the show, it carried on without Stephen's involvement, although he still received credit as the creator of the show. In 2015, Hillenburg helped write the screenplay for the second film featuring the Krusty Krab employee titled The SpongeBob Movie, Sponge Out of Water. It was precisely in this film that we had the first time the characters were completely rendered in CGI, even if only in a portion of the film. This was a milestone in the history of the jellyfish hunter. Unfortunately, Stephen suffered from a very rare health problem and passed away in 2018 at the age of 57. After this sad episode, in 2020, the third film was released, the SpongeBob movie, Sponge on the Run.
Clear the area, citizens. There's going to be some serious aft kicking here.
The film was entirely made in CGI, which was an innovation in the artistic concept of Bob and all the film's characters. In addition to the main SpongeBob series, Nickelodeon has developed two more spin-off series, Camp Coral, SpongeBob's Under Years, which, as the name suggests, tells the early years of SpongeBob as a child at a camp where he meets all his friends from Bikini Bottom. The story was, Let's say, first introduced through flashbacks that Bob had of the moment he met Gary, shown in the third film of the main series. Camp Coral was launched in 2021 and has been the most watched series on Paramount+, the streaming platform where it is exclusively aired. The Patrick Star Show, a show focused on Patrick, SpongeBob's best friend. Basically, it depicts Patrick's life with his family, father, mother, sister, and grandfather, along with their pets, of course. It was also launched in 2021, and a second season is already in the works. So what started as a simple comic book by a biology professor has now become a series with 13 seasons, 2 spin-off shows, 3 movies, and a whole lot of money for Nickelodeon. Trivia and controversies. The story of SpongeBob SquarePants also has some controversies over the years, and we're going to tell you about a few of them now. For example, there was a time when episodes were simply cut. After Nickelodeon revised its acceptable standards policies, 2 episodes were pulled from circulation by the company. The first one, called Midlife Crustacean, was suspended because at one point, Patrick, SpongeBob, and Mr. Krabs steal underwear, and that was considered a bit too much for Nickelodeon. In another episode called Quarantined Crab, we see the characters being somewhat neurotic because of a possible virus. Due to the recent global pandemic, the episode was removed from all platforms, and it's only possible to watch the original English version on YouTube.
Whole shebang!
Some of the audience criticized the company's stance, believing that it was simply a pressure to conform to political correctness. Another controversy involving the show, which wasn't really its fault but rather The Simpsons, was in an episode where Lisa said she was praying to Jesus, Buddha, and SpongeBob. Some members of both religions felt offended by placing a cartoon on the same level as Jesus and Buddha. One last controversy concerns the location of SpongeBob's city, Bikini Bottom. It's not really a controversy, but rather a bizarre story. The name of the city, Bikini Bottom, references Bikini Atoll, where nuclear bombs were tested, like the ones that supposedly created Godzilla, you know? That's why some theories claim that Steven Hillenburg chose this name to justify why marine animals have humanoid characteristics. It would all be due to exposure to radiation, which gave them the traits and intelligence for everything we see in the show, especially plankton. It's a very obscure theory, but we can't deny that there's a certain logic behind it. Those mushroom clouds that occasionally appear in the show are actual explosions, similar to the ones that happened in the real Bikini Atoll. Another curiosity is the fact that some celebrities have guest starred on the series. To mention a few examples, we have Keanu Reeves and Snoop Dogg, who appeared physically in the latest film. But besides them, some other celebrities have made special voiceover appearances, such as Johnny Depp, the famous Captain Jack Sparrow, Mark Hamill, the iconic Luke Skywalker from Star Wars, and Gene Simmons, the rock musician and member of the heavy metal band Kiss, known for their extravagant makeup. Another interesting thing about SpongeBob SquarePants is his age. I don't know if you remember, but at the beginning of the video, we mentioned that he is almost an old man. In a scene during SpongeBob's final driving test, you can see his birth date on his driver's license. He was born on July 14th, 1986, which means he is approximately 40 years old. He has spent many summers in Bikini Bottom, huh, Bob? And finally, one last curiosity. Did you know that every 4 seconds, someone in the world is talking about SpongeBob? Just like we did now. Talking about SpongeBob is always fun. Well, folks, that was the evolution of SpongeBob over the years. From its conception as a comic book to becoming one of the most watched cartoons today. Tell us down below your age and if you have watched SpongeBob or still do. Let us know in the comments. I, for one, still watch it because it's really good. If you enjoyed the video, give it a thumbs up and subscribe to the channel. Until next time, bye-bye!